Do you remember a time when you had to be physically standing in your kitchen to answer a phone call, yet you were also the very first person in your family to set up an email address? If that specific contradiction sounds familiar, you might belong to a unique microgeneration that straddles the massive divide between the analog past and the digital present. We call them Xennials. Hello. Today we are diving deep into the fascinating psychology of those born roughly between 1976 and 1985, the last generation to have an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. Let's start with their foundation, which was built on a concept that is almost foreign to modern psychology: scarcity and waiting. For a Xennial child, entertainment and information were not on demand. They were scheduled events. If you wanted to hear your favorite song, you didn't just type it into a search bar. You sat by the radio for an hour with a blank cassette tape, finger hovering over the record button, hoping the DJ wouldn't talk over the intro. This wasn't just an annoyance, it was a psychological training ground. It fostered a specific kind of patience and attention span. You learned that rewards required investment. This upbringing created a brain wired to appreciate the payoff because the effort to get there was tangible. Their social network wasn't hidden in a pocket. It consisted of the kids on the street, and the boundaries were physical. You rode your bike until the streetlights came on. This grounded upbringing meant their foundational understanding of the world was physical, slow, and hyperlocal, rather than virtual and infinite. Then came the teenage years and early adulthood, and this is where the Xennial experience diverges from everyone else. The digital revolution arrived not when they were toddlers and not when they were settled adults, but during their most formative neuroplastic years. But crucially, technology didn't arrive as a seamless, polished ecosystem like the smartphone era we live in now. It arrived in clunky, noisy pieces. It had a soundtrack, the screech of a dial-up modem connecting to AOL. Xennials were old enough to understand how the world worked before the internet. They knew how to use a card catalog in a library, but they were young enough to fearlessly adopt the new world as it emerged. They remember when the internet was a destination, a place you went to on a desktop computer in the living room, not a persistent layer over all of reality that follows you to the bathroom. This created a healthy psychological compartmentalization. Technology is viewed as a powerful, exciting tool to be used, but not necessarily an inherent, non-negotiable extension of their identity. If this description of bridging two very different timelines is resonating with your own memories, or perhaps helping you understand a partner or colleague better, please consider hitting the like button so we know this type of deep dive content is valuable to you. This unique position in history makes Xennials natural psychological bridges, especially in the modern workplace and family dynamics. They are often described as possessing both the cynicism and independence of Generation X, and the optimism and drive for collaboration of Millennials, without fully committing to either camp. They are the translators. In a corporate setting, a Xennial understands why a baby boomer boss prefers a phone call to settle a complex issue, but they also deeply relate to a Gen Z colleague's preference for text-based efficiency. This adaptability is their hallmark psychological trait. They are fluent in both face-to-face, high-stakes communication where tone and body language matter, and the shorthand of instant messaging. They don't fear technology, but they also don't fear eye contact. This ability to toggle between modes makes them incredibly effective leaders in multi-generational teams, as they are the only ones who truly speak both languages fluently. I want to pause here and ask you about a specific marker of this transition in your own life. Think back to the late 90s or early 2000s. What is the one specific dead technology or ritual that you miss the most? Is it the Friday night ritual of walking through the aisles of a video rental store to pick a movie, or maybe the privacy of passing folded paper notes in class instead of sending text that can be screenshotted? Share that specific memory in the comments below. Let's see which nostalgia hits the hardest. Another key psychological component for this group is the experience of the uncurated self. Xennials went through puberty, first heartbreaks, and questionable fashion choices without social media. This is a massive psychological difference. They made their mistakes in private. There is no high definition video evidence of their most awkward teenage moments permanently stored on a server. This lack of a digital footprint during childhood allowed them to develop a sense of self that wasn't dependent on external validation through likes or views. Their nostalgia, which is a powerful force for this group, isn't just about missing childhood toys. It's a yearning for that privacy. It is a psychological longing for a time before the overwhelming pressure of 24/7 personal branding. That simpler time feels intensely real to them because they were the last human beings to truly experience it as young adults just before the door closed on the analog world. If you are enjoying this analysis of generational psychology and want to explore more topics about how our past shapes our minds, consider subscribing to the channel to catch our next video. Finally, we have to look at how this unique background shapes their current adult lives, particularly regarding their search for balance. Xennials entered the workforce just as the traditional social contract of corporate loyalty equals lifetime security was beginning to shatter, but before the complete dominance of the gig economy and hustle culture. Psychologically, this leaves them seeking a difficult middle ground. They value the stability that their parents sought. They want the 401k and the steady paycheck, but they possess the millennial desire for their work to have actual meaning and purpose. They are willing to work hard, but having seen the burnout of older generations and the anxiety of younger ones, they are constantly trying to set boundaries. They are the generation most likely to enforce a digital detox on the weekend, not because it's a trend, but because they remember what a Saturday felt like without a notification ping, and they are constantly trying to get back to that feeling of uninterrupted peace. Being a Xennial means having a foot planted in two distinct historical eras. It is a psychological makeup defined by high adaptability, a utilitarian perspective on technology, and a deep, bone-deep appreciation for life as it exists off the screen. I hope this helped clarify the mindset of this often overlooked microgeneration. Thanks for watching.